Hello! Today, I've turned 7 Days to Die into 7 Days to Survive, a game mode I exclusively subject myself to for the sins I have committed. What does this mean? Well, let me explain. After 700 hours of autistically min-maxing its mechanics, I have successfully disfigured this gem of a zombie survival into a roguelike that turns the first 7 nights into a reenactment of iShowSpeed's fan base, except they're all British. But these aren't your average vanilla settings. No. I'm in far too deep to be suckling the vanilla-flavored tea to this point, so we've poured this little maneuver and changed it from a blood moon every 7 nights into a blood moon every night, then doubled the amount of zombie spawns. How did I double the amount of zombie spawns? I hear your grossly underdeveloped brain groups wondering. Well, I hacked into the game, edited its code, and removed the limiter. This is no longer 7 Days to Die, it's 7 days of CBT. This means, as we level up, the zombies' number and power level progresses with us at double the intended rate, unlocking new zombie types that would not normally be introduced so early. Yes, that's right, getting overwhelmed within the first few nights is a very possible scenario, and the genius design of 7 Days to Die's base game means the roguelike elements are already built in, as the limited time and RNG loot forces you to specialize down a limited path of progression and commit to what the game rewards you with, allowing each run to be completely different depending on the tools you collect early on. And thus, as any roguelike enjoyer will tell you, a slight lapse in judgment can easily end a very lucky run 5 hours in. A successful run of this involves a lot of optimization and reliance on RNG, but due to the nature of the game being less than polished, cheesing the AI with base setups from people on the spectrum is a major no-no. Therefore, we need to add a few self-imposed limitations to reduce the temptation of cheesing, and by all means, bend these limitations to your personal playstyle. First, we can only have one point of entry. Second, we cannot use any block formations that bug out the zombie AI. And finally, the zombies must be able to hit the barrier that we create, so repairing becomes a major part of surviving the night. This introduces resource management, awareness, and reaction speed to an otherwise easily cheesable game, for a very good reason. So the setup for this challenge is pretty simple. We're playing with 64 zombies spawning, a blood moon every single night, and the death punishment set to hardcore. Everything else is set to vanilla. However, to attain the 2x growth rate on the game's vanilla game stage, we need to modify the game's configuration.ini file and change this value to fit your brand of masochism. I decided on double what the game intends because, well, I think it sounds badass. But changing the game stage of this survival has a double-edged effect due to the core mechanics of the blood moons. But what is game stage? You see, game stage is calculated through 3 specific values: the level of the player plus the number of days multiplied by the game stage multiplier. It's a whole bunch of maths, and this is played with only 1 life, so all you need to know is that game stage goes up and higher game stage equals larger hordes of zombies. Every night, you have to haul up in a base and defend against hordes of zombies desperate for your flesh. And as significantly more zombies are spawning, we're gaining significantly more experience. And thus, the game stage dramatically inflates, presenting horrors like the zombie bear by night 2. Or does it? Well, yes, actually. This means, without fine-tuning a run and a whole lot of help from RNG, my own resource, power level, and technology can quickly become outpaced by the zombies' game stage. You see, that's how they're getting their steroids so early. The beauty of playing a game like this is that one tiny lapse in judgment or a single missing item by day 4 can result in 4 hours of your life wasted harder than your childhood playing World of Warcraft. Welcome to the last 700 hours of my life, and maybe, just maybe, your next crack gaming addiction. Oh, I can't believe this shit. They've broken in so fucking early. I wouldn't have it. So you're probably wondering, Damn, that's rough. It's only day 6 and you've got irradiated zombies about to perform a vasectomy on your anal canal. And yeah, you'd be right, but clearly I'm into that brand of pain. But this is the furthest I ever got attempting this challenge. However, to appreciate the journey, we need to start at the beginning. The gameplay starts off like any other 7 Days to Die. We open the challenge tab, accept the first challenge, then power our way through the tutorials like a speedrunner on crack. This leads to the nearest trader, which we hope is somewhat nearby. Anything over 400 meters is pretty much a bust, and we should probably restart. You can see where the optimization starts to come into play. Anywhere we can save time is crucial for countering bad RNG down the line. Luckily, this run, our trader was only 300 meters away, so we make a break for it. Upon arriving at the trader, there are now 2 important items we need. The first is Forge Ahead magazines, found in the broken down crafting stations and sold by Trader Rect himself. This is one of the most important starter steps for any run. The speed at which we find these Forge Ahead magazines is one of the most defining factors for our success, and with 5 potential points already taken from Rect's shop, we had the Forge unlocked before 8 AM. This is a viable run and no restart is necessary. With that said, we begin our tasks for day 1, grabbing the quests from Trader Rect and setting up a simple resource dump near the location that we'll eventually call our dungeon. The reason this method is important is because it offers 3 crucial resources. The first is the quest rewards, mainly the magazine bundle boxes. These give 6 random magazines needed to level up some of the more niche skills. The second is currency, as each quest not only gives you a reason to go out, but also rewards you with a small chunk of coins to purchase resources we may be lacking.
Shit, man, I treat you that good and you don't even fucking tip me.
And finally, completing 10 Tier 1 quests for Rect will reward you with a bicycle, a moderately fast vehicle that can be used to explore other towns and check the vendors there. More vendors equals more Forged Ahead equals more progression. I think you get the point. For the moment, the strat is magazine farming, and you can exploit the spawning mechanics of these quests to hit each point of interest twice. Allow me to explain. You take the quest, head to the location, clear through it as fast as possible, take the loot from the final reward box, leave through the conveniently placed exit, accept the quest floating out the front, and do it all over again. Very profitable, but more importantly, very efficient. With a lot of practice, you can complete 6 POIs before nighttime approaches and still have enough time to prepare your base and defenses. Our progress at the end of day 1 is in a good spot. We have the forge set up, processing materials through us throughout the night, a level 4 wooden club for self-defense, and level 5 stone tools to assist us with the process of building our base. As I stated, bases to cheese the AI are not allowed. We must create a base that zombies attack head-on, and that left me with only one option.
Et haet vuoksista ja moni on ensurientemme faasut.
You again? Haven't I told you to stop summoning me, you donkey? What's that you want this time? A bloody video game challenge? Just dig into the ground, you muppet.
It took many iterations to come up with an optimal setup for night 1, and the results may shock you. A 1-block tomb. But the placement is important. 1 block on the ground, an empty space in the middle, and a block on the top, creating a singular block gap in between to smash the zombie skulls in with my club. But here's the kicker. To prevent zombies from crawling through this 1 space gap, because they do attempt to crawl through, I mean, come on, what the fuck is that? You place a 1/3 block on the top. Filling this space and crouching still gives you reasonable visibility to cave in their heads. With all that set up, it's time to defend against the horde, and oh, we're already at the point where special Zeds are spawning before the end of day 1. This could be painful. Surviving night 1 was a success. but as you've probably noticed, we gained a lot of experience during that first blood moon, already putting us at level 11, and thus our game stage is at a dangerous level for tonight. There was no time to waste, so we immediately repeat the steps of day 1. Therefore, I'll use this day to explain the key items that we need to find in order to survive that final night. First, we need those Forge Ahead magazines. This is probably the most important upgrade, as cement tier blocks have 5,000 durability to them and will be required to withstand the horrors Night 5 and 6 will bring. Second, we need a wrench to gain easy access to springs, mechanical parts, and engines, to which we need at least 2 engines for 2 cement mixers. It will all make sense later in the run. With that said, progressing through the day was pretty smooth. We gathered a bunch of important magazines, enough to actually enter the Iron Age of tools and weapons. Quite a significant feat, considering it's only the second day, but it's necessary if we're going to survive the night. The most important find of the day was a natty engine inside this container and a wrench, allowing us to acquire the necessary mechanical parts for the workbench. Other notable items we found were a few perk magazines specific to the clubs and shotguns. Oh, what's that? What are perk magazines? Well, I hope you still got your notebook. You see, magazines are broken into 2 categories: progression and perks. Progression magazines are the one that unlock new recipes to craft higher tier items, and perk magazines are weapon specific, giving you unique bonuses that buff your weapon or your playstyle. Which playstyles are we trying to play? Well, the playstyle of not fucking dying. However, there is one particular magazine set that I want to complete: Shotgun Messiah, turning our base into a certified shotgun shell factory, which leads us on to the evening, where we prepare to soak our newly acquired chain-mounted baseball bat in zombie blood. We expand our attack zone from a 1-square prison to a 3-square locker room, and use our remaining time to slightly optimize the design for damage. You see, now, instead of a singular square for the zombies to attack from, I keep the barrier design the same, but drop the floor down using a half block, which should line their heads up perfectly when my bat comes a-swinging.
Now that's a lot of damage!
And with that, time to endure Night 2. With a few close calls throughout the night, the new kill box and upgrades led us to victory, but as you can see, sometimes it gets quite tight, and a single mistake can spell our immediate demise. Day 3 was an important day. It is the day that we can finally complete Trader Rec's 10 quests and obtain our bike, giving us access to the new vendor, something we desperately need to solve because all vendors reset on day 4, refreshing their inventories and giving us potentially more Forge Ahead books. The quests and loot were fairly standard. We acquired a bunch of steroids, magazines, and resources that would help us later, but time was running out. Now we have the bike, we turn our forge to cement creation, ready for our mixers, and head towards the next vendor deep within the adjacent biome, the Burnt Forest. This was definitely a viable run, so at this point it was important to lock in because we still needed some essential items. Items that hopefully Trader Jen can provide. The trade-off of going to a new vendor is that it was a massive time sink. Each new vendor is in a new biome, and due to time constraints of this challenge, we only really had time for one additional vendor found in the Burnt Forest, but this time sink was definitely worth it. On the way there, however, we discovered the location of a second Trader Rex. How this man could be in 2 places at once is unknown, but we don't question the game mechanics, we just thank RNG and hope his inventory isn't garbage. Spoiler alert, it was garbage. But when the vendors reset, its potential could change the game, and conveniently, it's on the way to Trader Jen's. Arriving at Jen's did yield fruit though, as she did have 2 Forged Ahead books, but most importantly, enough club magazines to push us up to quality 6 baseball bat. And with the legendary part that we obtained earlier, we could now craft the first of our 2 legendary items. So we head back to the dungeon, break down our already existing wall, expand it out by 3 squares, creating an even larger kill box, panic because I don't have enough cobblestone or wood to repair the barriers, remember how to play, and then the slaughter begins. A very close call, and an indicator that the progression of the world is starting to outpace our damage and defenses. At this point, we are heavily reliant on shoring up our infrastructure and obtaining that cement mixer, so the pressure was on. Day 4 meant that the traders had refreshed their goods, so our first task was to check them for magazines and materials. We still needed 4 forged ahead magazines to unlock the cement mixer, and every point of interest containing a guaranteed forged ahead was picked clean. So we headed to the vendors. Trader Rec directly outside our dungeon had 1, but because of the insane amount of experience that we acquired from last night's horde, it was time to shift our focus of damage onto the other viable strength option, shotguns. So we brought up his Shotgun Messiah magazines and headed for Trader Rec number 2. On the way, I tried to loot as many magazine containers as I could. However, upon arriving at the trader, he was devoid of any kind of useful goods. We still needed 3 magazines, and our options were very limited.
You don't buy something next time, I'll shoot you.
Right at this moment though, the airdrop arrived. Airdrops in 7 days are basically randomized loot boxes that contain very high tier items. The drop was fairly far away, but I decided to go for it anyway as it has the potential to turn the tide. Ideally, we wanted magazines, but sadly, all we got was moldy bread. So Trader Jen was next. I hastily bike across the burning wasteland and arrive mid-morning, but unfortunately, she only had 2 forged ahead magazines, leaving us 1 short of that much needed cement mixer. Devastated, I paused the game and weighed up my remaining options. I could search the nearby town in the hopes that we'd find a guaranteed forged ahead spawn, but this meant that I'd be risking leaving too late, and the surrounding area around Trader Jen's was completely devoid of any form of life. 2, I could bite the bullet and search every nearby magazine container in the hopes that we get a forge ahead book. Well, that's not a bloody option, is it? And 3, I could head back to base and check Trader Rec's quests, because there are 3 points of interest nearby that spawn guaranteed forged ahead books. And with up to 10 quests to choose from, there was a pretty high chance that I could reset one of these and loot the final forged ahead magazine. So I decided to go with that. The Maloney Residence, the Dollhouse, the Mausoleum, Shade Tree Auto, and Hogfoot Village. A rundown shack containing 1 guaranteed forged ahead container. The God Run is still secure. So we grabbed the quest, reset the area, ran in, looted the magazine from the broken down Dew Collector, and began the process of setting up our cement mixers. However, we have 0 crushed sand. Now, although we could get it fairly quickly by digging in the nearby desert, this is why we are making 2 cement mixers instead of just the 1, as you can crush stone into sand using a cement mixer. So we place them down, begin crushing the sand, and spend the remaining hours of day 4 setting up the defenses for the night. But there was still a problem. Now our base is fully reinforced with concrete, the zombies have a lot more durability to break through in order to get to us. So I'll use this opportunity to explain how zombie AI works. You see, the zombies obviously want to devour our brains, and to do that, they look for a route that has the least resistance. But with over 10,000 durability that they now need to break through, we leave ourselves vulnerable from above. After all, burrowing into 8 layers of dirt is significantly easier than throwing themselves into a concrete kill box. I've lost many a run because of this. Therefore, we do a quick one of these. And although we are now encased in a concrete prison, success was not guaranteed due to our lack of DPS. We are still heavily reliant on our melee capabilities, so the points that we obtained from last night's level ups were spent into intellect. And throughout this whole playthrough, electrician and trap magazines have been accumulating, so allow me to introduce you to the next step in base production. Power! Power has many applications for trap usage in 7 Days to Die, but for the purpose of Night 4, we're just using it to set up electric tripwires that stun zombies temporarily. With our base setup, I found this configuration quite effective, but to be honest, these traps are so powerful that it doesn't really matter. With that said, we also set up some actual lights and a convenient switch to turn the traps on or off. So let's see how this fares against the incoming onslaught. Our concrete defense was steadfast and victory was fruitful, but it was clear that self-defense was becoming a priority due to the Special Zeds barreling down upon us. We needed to prepare for the rise of the Feral Wights, so the focus shifted onto firepower. First on the agenda was farming out more magazines to craft higher quality armor and unlock the pump-action shotgun. Speedrunning loot containers was the goal for now, and thus completing as many quests for Wrecked became our priority for day 5. Our first quest was the Cartel House, featuring our very first Feral Wight encounter. Oh my fucking god, it's a wight. Fuck. Juiced up as we are though, the wight was not a problem. However, it was like Halloween season had dawned, and we were now very likely to see ferals in abundance at our doorstep tonight. And I've got a trick loaded for them in my 12 gauge. But we're not just here for loot, my friends. No. Since the very beginning of this playthrough, we've been hoarding our dukes like a dirty little goblin in order to unlock an important endgame item that allows us to create forged steel at our leisure. The Crucible. And only now, after 5 whole days of scavenging around like a rat, have we finally saved up enough to purchase it, unlocking a whole new tier above our current capabilities. We've now progressed past an actual shit stain to a full-blown stinking pile of feces. But before we can focus too heavily onto that, there is one other task that we must complete for the day, and that's firepower. You see, now we finally unlocked the pump-action shotgun, we need ammo, and although 300 shells is a lot, is it enough to survive the day 5 horde? I'm guessing not. Therefore, all throughout the last 2 days, I've been producing gunpowder passively on my person. Gunpowder is produced by turning 2 niter and 2 coal into 1 gunpowder. We could then take this gunpowder and craft shotgun shells using buckshot, paper, and gunpowder in our workbench. But paper is rare, I hear you say, and yes, you are right, paper is fairly rare. However, there is a great method to farming it passively throughout your playthrough, and that's by hitting these bad boys whenever you see them, rewarding sometimes up to 20 paper per block. And with that, it's time to prepare for another night of hell. We use our newly acquired Crucible, process enough forged iron for a level 1 pump-action shotgun, refresh our traps, place down a few new ones, but sadly, we're not rich enough to upgrade the base to full steel blocks. At least for now. Shotgun loaded, consumables juiced, and armor swapped from melee to ranged, it was time to lock the fuck in and take on the night. We had made it to the final day. All that was left was to last through tonight, and the dawn of the 7th day marks the completion of this challenge. Only one major objective remained for us to complete in preparations for the final blood moon, and that was farming resources. But now, with our newly acquired access to steel technology, we have the steel pickaxe and 3 points in motherlode, causing 2 minutes of mining a node into a bounty of resources. Congratulations! You've survived the course on how to complete the most stressful challenge in 7 days to die. Time well spent on my end, if you ask me. We end the God Run fully stocked with ammunition, our best healing items. Unfortunately, our second legendary part went to waste due to not getting enough magazines for those tier 6 gloves. However, we have got our pump action shotgun with various attachments, including the rad remover. We also have some basic explosives found throughout the playthrough, a fully powered base up to the concrete tier, and a couple of potent traps. Our shortfalls were our ability to get mechanical parts and a more powerful repair hammer, but in such a short amount of time and limited points, I think we did pretty well. So it was time. We stuff our face with our best food, snort copious amounts of coffee, drugs, and candy, and prepare to take on the final horde. Which brings us back full circle. The failure of this challenge, and despite having a perfect run, with everything unlocked, our defenses had failed us. But I haven't been entirely forthcoming with you during this playthrough. This may be the run shown at the beginning of the video, but I left out the majority of our progress today. I've been busy at work, and on this day, I worked the hardest of them all, and thus, we were not actually defeated during this moment. And there it is. The sun rises, and the challenge is complete. We survived to the 7th day with a blood moon every night on 2x Game Stage Multiplier. If you enjoyed the video, do all the YouTube stuff, and I appreciate the overwhelmingly positive response to the last video. There are plenty more videos like this to come, so subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.